What we're going to do is we're going to do turkey, ham, we're going to do some fondant potatoes. I'm going to show you how to stuff the turkey a little bit different, and then I'm going to show you how to make a really quick gravy, and we'll do some mince pies with a twist as well. Okay. So the biggest problem people have when they're cooking Christmas dinner is oven space. If you stick a full turkey into your oven,
No more room.
No more room. So it's about being smart with what your the space and the equipment you have.
Get a small turkey.
Get a chicken, yeah,
Big chicken.
and call it a turkey. So what I always do every Christmas at home, I get a turkey, half a turkey breast, which is going to feed 8 to 10 people, which is plenty, you know. So I get my butcher to take it off the bone. So again, this is only going to take up like half my oven space, so I can actually get potatoes in there and get ham and get the whole lot in as well. So turkey.
How would you stuff that then, though?
I'm going
to the skin.
Yeah. So what we're going to do, right, is we lift up the skin. I always wear gloves when I'm doing it. Anytime you're handling kind of raw meat, try and wear gloves.
Yeah, particularly poultry, yeah?
Yeah, definitely. And never wash it in your sink, because that's where you wash all your clean dishes. If you kind of start washing raw chicken, and years ago you saw us say wash your chicken, you're just splashing chicken juice all over your draining board. So you don't need to, if it's cooked thoroughly, it's perfectly safe.
Yeah. Do you ever get food poisoning?
Did I ever get food poisoning? I did actually, yeah.
It's
once.
horrid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not pleasant.
No, I did once a mistake as well.
Yeah. I got it somewhere. I got it at work.
No, I did it to myself.
I did it to yourself?
I defrosted it, froze it again, defrosted it, froze it again. I was only about 17, but I was missing in action for 3 days. It was horrific.
No, I got it from a breakfast roll. Dodgy breakfast roll that was left sitting around too long, I'd say. So stuffing wise, you can do your standard stuffing if you want, like your onions and your herbs and your bread and all that.
Is that it?
This is black pudding.
Is it edible?
Yeah, black pudding is cooked anyway when you buy it. So I'm using raspberry black pudding.
Oh yeah, carbeg?
Yeah, carbeg.
Oh yeah.
So what I do is, because turkey is so dry, there's a good bit of fat in the black pudding. So I just blitzed it up in the food processor to kind of make it into a bit of a kind of a breadcrumb consistency.
Didn't add anything like olive oil or anything, no?
No, and it's got so much flavour in there. And all you do then is just pack it in underneath the skin, get it right in there.
Waste not, want that.
So as your turkey is roasting, all the natural fat that's in the pudding will start seeping down into the breast, and it also helps season the meat all the way through. It's a really nice way of stuffing the bird.
And it's a real Cork type of stuffing, isn't it? I mean,
yeah.
We talk about breadcrumbs, and then the other Cork. Well, the Cork tradition is potato, onions, and thyme. Where are you on that? Do you have a preference of either of those?
I like the black pudding because I'm not a big fan of eating too much gluten myself. I think the black pudding adds a bit more flavour to the...
Is it healthier then?
I would think it's healthier, yeah.
Yeah, because it's...
In my opinion.
It's not potato.
It's not potato.
It's not bread.
Well, I'm not a big fan of bread. Too much bread's bad for you.
That's super. I never even thought of that. That's brilliant.
So that's all stuffed. And then when you carve it, which we'll see later on, when you cut into it, everyone gets a bit of stuffing on top underneath the skin. So it's easier to portion it as well, instead of carving a bird on the bone. If we carve it like this, and you actually get better portion control out of it, and it makes life easier. And then for your gravy, what I always do is this little bit down the end here, because that's so thin and that's so thick, that's going to overcook by the time this is perfectly cooked. So what we do is we just take off a little bit of that, and I'm going to dice this up, and what I'll do is I'll fry this off in a while with some veg. I'm going to make my gravy out of this, so I get a bit of a turkey gravy.
Okay, we're going to do that later on with a little wine or something.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
So then all we do is we get our turkey, sit it on a tray, and then on the same tray I'm going to put in some, I've got some carbeg bacon as well.
Smoked or anything like that?
Smoked bacon. So classically some people would cook a big massive ham. Again, you know, it takes up a lot of space. If you're cooking for a lot of people and you want to have ham for 4 or 5 days, then cook a large ham. But with a loin of bacon, I get about 7 or 8 slices out of that. This is dry cured, which means it won't shrink. And plus you don't need to soak this bacon. So all I'm simply going to do is I'm going to roast that with the turkey. So this turkey will take about 2.5 hours. This will take 40 minutes.
But that is a different Christmas lunch or dinner now, because it's bacon, it's not ham.
Yeah,
so
it's kind of
different taste.
It's a different taste. Yeah, it's a different texture. Yeah,
it's an option.
Yeah. And it's just about using your oven space.
Mind you, forgive me, but you could almost cook a ham the night before, couldn't you?
You could cook the ham the night before, definitely.
Yeah.
But again, every year when I cook Christmas dinner, I kind of just do it in 2 hours, start to finish. I just don't like doing the prep the night before. That's just my own.
But that's because you're a pro. I mean,
yeah.
for others, then it takes 8 o'clock that morning. And then there's the whole argument as to how long you cook a turkey for.
Exactly.
Because I have always found that if you really did go 20 minutes a pound and 20 on top, it's way overcooked.
It's always overcooked.
Always.
The secret is to use a temperature probe, which I have, and I'll show you in a while, to get it to the perfect temperature so it's not dry. Then with I get some celeriac. I'll leave the skin on and just cut like a circle like that, and just sit on top of the celeriac. That actually just keeps the meat off the tray, and it stops the meat burning on the bottom, and adds extra flavour. Okay, and then
little tips like that are just invaluable, aren't they?
Yeah, well, it's just little simple tips like that, and then a little bit of salt.
Why wouldn't you put olive oil in it first? Because the salt not just fall off?
No, you don't need any olive oil. There's enough fat underneath that with the bacon or with the black pudding and with the skin, it'll actually get super crispy. You don't need to add any oil. Plus, if you add too much oil, what happens is that the oil is going to drip onto the tray and give you a very oily liquid, because we're going to use some of the natural cooking liquids for a sauce. So if you've loads of olive oil on that, goes into
I usually would have put olive oil, then the salt, then the black pepper.
No.
And I always found that it just held on.
No, it'll stay on like that.
Okay.
Then I put some white wine in the tray. The white wine creates a little bit of steam as it's baking, and that steam keeps the turkey moist from underneath, and then the dry heat from the oven is hitting the top, giving you crispy skin.
Amazing.
So I put.
Do you cover that then, cling film?
No.
Tin foil.
No, don't cover it. The minute you cover it, you're going to get soggy skin on the turkey because you're creating steam. But if you just put it in like this, so what we'll do is we'll start it off at 200 degrees for about half an hour.
What's that gas now?
Gas, it's about gas mark 8, yeah. And then after half an hour, we'll turn it down to about 160 and cook it nice.
Do you turn it over or anything like that?
No. Just leave it, that's it.
You wouldn't cook it skin down, you know what people say?
No. Just keep it simple, bang it in.
That's me complicating things.
So then once that goes in, next thing we want to start doing is our potatoes. So what we're going to do is we're going to do fondant potatoes. So every year, people are always mad for the roast potatoes. And a lot of domestic cookers at home wouldn't be as high output of power as like a professional kitchen. So it's very, very hard sometimes to get crispy potatoes, especially if you have steam coming off your turkey and your ham all in the same oven. It's very hard to get these fellas crispy. So what I do is I do what's called fondant potatoes.
Okay.
So I've just got some potatoes that are peeled here.
Let's say if you were doing the roast, would you parboil them first?
You have to parboil them,
Cut them in half.
Yeah.
Give them a bit of a shake to get a fluff on the edge, and then bang them in with olive oil.
Bang. Well, I'd start them in a really hot pan in oil and get them like really crispy, and then into the oven.
Okay.
They need a good bit of heat from the word go to get crispy. Otherwise, they'll never crisp up
and
properly.
Do you have a preference for potato?
I use roosters. My favourite.
Yeah.
They kind
for baking and frying, you wouldn't go for Mars Piper or anything like
that? Mars Piper are quite good for roasters, but when you parboil them, you have to be super, super delicate, because if you slightly overcook them and you shake them, they fall apart.
So roosters are good all-rounders?
Roosters are kind of a safer option, but it's completely up to yourself.
Is that duck fat or goose?
We've got some duck fat here, okay? So what we do with these potatoes is we're just going to cut them, take off one side each like that, just to give you a flat surface, and then straight down the middle, okay? And try and have them all roughly the same thickness. You don't have to be exact. And then cut side down, we're going to put them into the pan.
They're thick, aren't they, Chef?
They'll cook in 30 minutes. So just cut them down.
But you're not going to leave them 30 minutes on a pan, are you?
We're going to brown them and then throw them into the oven in the pan.
On the pan.
Yeah.
But you must have a pan that can go from hob to oven.
Yeah, or else I'm going to actually transfer them onto a tray because it's easier. So what you want to do with these fellas is start them off in a high temperature. We're going to get them golden brown on both sides. Then we're going to put a nice bit of butter in there, foam it up, some garlic, some rosemary, and then a little bit of water. And I'll explain why you put the water in a few minutes. So they're in the pan there. So what I want to do now is just a little bit of salt.
You got to season everything, don't you?
Yeah, what you should do when you're cooking is you season as you go along. So every time you add in an ingredient or you start something, a little bit of salt and pepper. And if you season a little bit every time you do a step, like even when we carve the turkey later on, I'll season the meat as I carve into it.
And you're obviously, because you're a chef, it's sea salt all the way, even though it's more expensive than the flowing salt. It's not kind of chemically produced.
Yeah, because sea salt is 100% natural, whereas table salt's got anti-caking agents into it.
It's not very nice.
I'm not a good fan of it. And plus with the rock salt or the sea salt, you get a crunch off the vegetables or the meat. You get a nice kind of burst of flavour. So it's just something. I would never use table salt at home, only for baking. If you had to put a bit of salt into a recipe, because you can't sieve that. So that's the only time I'd use it. They're going to start to brown up there. So all to them, we're going to start browning up our vegetables and our turkey trimmings for our gravy. Bit of oil in the pan. And then those turkey pieces that we took earlier on, just drop them in here. Let this come up to a really high temperature. Put some rosemary in there. So when you're making gravy and you're frying off vegetables and you're frying off meat, the more colour you get on the vegetables and on the meat, the better your gravy will be.
The rosemary is gorgeous though.
It just gives it a nice kick, yeah.
Man.
It just makes it just something, and that literally is just cut from our own garden there about 20 minutes ago.
Really?
Yeah. So veg-wise then, I've got some carrots, some onions and some leeks. Get them all in there. This is all on a high heat, and we're going to brown it as much as we can. Anytime you're making sauces, you never add any salt or pepper until the sauce is finished. So I wouldn't season that now at this stage, because when I add in wine and stuff and reduce it down, it can get too salty. So at the very end, before you serve your sauces, salt and pepper them. All right?
Gotcha.
So my potatoes here, I'm just going to start turning them over. And they're starting to get a little bit golden brown around the edges.
Golden brown, as the song says. Texture like sun. Or black, that's the thing.
Then we're going to throw in some butter.
Oh, now you're getting serious.
So,
That big bad baby.
a good knob of butter. And then we're going to put in some more rosemary. So when you're cooking these potatoes, any strong woody herb would work, like rosemary, thyme or sage.
Love time,
Yeah, so
Maybe even all three.
yeah, all three if you want. But they can take a lot of cooking and they can take a lot of heat, so don't worry too much. They won't kind of burn. But if you put parsley or anything in there at this stage, it's just going to burn and you're going to lose all your flavour.
You guys are notorious for butter. He's up.
Well, butter's good for you.
Is butter good this week? It is.
I'm a big fan of butter.
Next week it'll be bad for us again.
I love butter.
Yeah, great colour, isn't it?
Yeah, so more colour is more flavour. So what we're going to do now is, with these fellas here, is we just keep an eye on them. So the butter's starting to foam up. So when you're cooking with butter, what happens is there's three stages. First of all, it melts. Then it starts to go white and foamy. Then it goes golden brown and foamy. And then it goes black.
Then it burns.
Then it burns, right? So what we want to do is bring it to this kind of a golden brown foamy stage, which is just about to hit there now.
Oh man, that smells mega.
And then what we want to do is we want to stop the cooking process of the butter. We don't want it to cook anymore, but we still want to keep the flavour. So splash of water.
See, that's alien to me now what you just did there now.
Splash of water, so that means the butter can't go above 100 degrees if the water doesn't go
But to
above.
me now that just means that the potatoes will just stew away.
No, they won't. Because all that butter will all the water will evaporate in the oven, and then it'll start to roast
Isn't that
again.
amazing?
So
What a great tip.
all you do now is you can put, if you have an oven-proof pan, you can put it straight into the oven, or else just transfer them onto a tray. And then we're just going to roast them with the turkey. And the good thing about these potatoes is that you could do them 2 or 3 hours in advance, and because there's so much fat in them, they reheat really well, and they don't taste dry.
Bung them back in before.
Yeah, bung them back in with the ham, and that's it. So back to our gravy here, you can see the vegetables are starting to colour and caramelise. So what we're going to do now is deglaze the pan, which means take all that caramelisation off the veg. So I use white wine with turkey.
You wouldn't have made a red wine gravy,
No,
no?
I personally always use white wine with white meat. It's my own personal preference. But it's completely up to yourself. You can use red wine as well. Now, the biggest mistake people make when they're doing gravies at home is they don't let the wine reduce right down. So sometimes when you're watching TV programs, they flambe the wine. That's to burn off the alcohol. I don't suggest doing that at home in case you burn the place down, but if you let alcohol boil rapidly and reduce down to a syrup, it gets rid of that raw alcohol flavour. Sometimes you hear people say that they have a red wine sauce and it just tastes very, very winey. That means they haven't reduced the alcohol enough. So let that boil right down rapidly. Okay?
How long? Say in this case now, you're talking about.
This fella here is going to take 2 or 3 minutes, that's it. And what's basically going to happen is that wine is going to wash all the flavour off the veg. So that's reduced right down now. It's starting to get quite sticky. So what I have here is I've got some cooking, roasting liquid from the turkey earlier on.
Did you drain anything off that now? Did you drain the fat off the top of it? Or?
No.
It's everything.
It's everything in there. The reason it's gone so dark is because some of the black pudding has dropped into it while it's roasting and it's helped darken it up. So that's 100%.
So that's everything.
Black pudding and chicken juice. And again, there's not much fat in turkey. I didn't add a load of fat onto it, so there's very little amount of fat in that. So then we're just going to pour in some of that.
Wow, it is a lovely colour, isn't it?
See, the black pudding has helped darken that now.
Yeah.
So just give that a mix. So we're going to bring that to the boil, and then we're going to taste it, and then we're going to thicken it with corn flour. That's our gravy done. So what I always do at home then is I always cook vegetables that will cook on top of the hob while the turkey and ham and stuff are in the oven. So things like braised red cabbage, carrot and parsnip mash.
Brussels sprouts.
Brussels sprouts. If you're cooking Brussels sprouts, parboil them and then roast them off with some icing sugar. It gets rid of that bitter.
Icing sugar?
Yeah, dust them in icing sugar and then roast them. Because Brussels sprouts are really bitter. A bit of icing sugar balances the bitterness and they taste amazing. And they caramelise really, really well.
God, it's amazing. Who'd have thought icing sugar?
Just strain that.
Not to waste the good veg.
If you blitz it up, it's just going to make turkey soup.
Oh, I know. That's lunch, ladies and gentlemen. That's lunch.
That's perfectly edible though. So we're going to thicken this sauce slightly. So what we're going to do is I'm going to use a little bit of corn flour to thicken it. So what you want to do is get some corn flour and we're going to dissolve it in some cold water. Try not to have the gravy too thick because it tastes very stodgy.
Yeah, it can.
You just want enough corn flour in there to just to lightly thicken it and just bring it together. So don't go overboard on it. So just dissolve the corn flour into the in some cold water.
Are you a believer that that it should only be like little amounts of gravy, or as you guys call it, jus? Because like in our house, it's kind of boatloads of the stuff.
That's because generally the turkey's dry, so you want a load of sauce on it.
Yeah.
Try and keep the gravy really light. Also, if you want to add like an extra flavour to the gravy, what we would do in the restaurant sometimes is that we thicken our gravies, and then we Monty in a knob of butter and then a splash of sherry vinegar. And it gives us really kind of
Not red wine vinegar.
No, sherry vinegar, and it kind of gives an extra flavour, and it cuts through the sauce if it's a bit too fatty. The sherry vinegar, it's quite nice. So I'm just going to drop in a tiny bit of this. Bring it back up to the boil again. And if you're ever making sauces and stuff at home, if a sauce tastes too salty, vinegar counterbalances. So if you ever have a sauce that's very salty, if you put a splash of vinegar in, it calms down the salt in your mouth.
It smells great. It's almost like Christmas morning.
But yeah, it's just like that for me now is thick enough.
Yeah.
And that was probably like half a teaspoon of corn flour.
Yeah.
So that's the sauce done. It's quite a rich, sharp sauce. Another thing that I learned over cooking for years is that your sauces, when you taste them by themselves, they should be quite strong and a big depth of flavour. And then when you have it with like your turkey or chicken, your beef, there's a balance. But if your sauce tastes extremely pleasant eating it by itself, it's not going to have any wow factor when it comes in contact with meat. So, for example, if you have a salad dressing with like vinegar and lemon juice and olive oil, and you taste it, it tastes really sharp and bitter. But the minute you start dipping leaves into it and you taste it with the leaves, it actually works really well. So anytime you have a sauce, make sure it's packed full of flavour, and it'll shine through then when you have it.
That's amazing, because you would think the opposite would be the case. You think it would overpower the
taste.
taste.
No, you want really strong.
The main event.
So here's one we made earlier.
I love that line. And we did. We were here on time. And you're right, the salt stayed. Yeah.
Crispy skin. So what I did basically is that my ham was cooked after 40 minutes. I took it out. My potatoes were cooked after 40 minutes. I took them out and let's let them rest on a tray.
How long did the turkey cook?
That fella took 2 hours.
Long enough, isn't it?
Yeah. But what I used is a temperature probe. So if you want to cook turkey perfectly, you want to cook it to about 74 degrees. So you can get these in any kitchen shop. So all you do is you stick it into the center of the turkey, and it'll give you a reading of what the core temperature is of the turkey. Once it hits 74, it's perfectly cooked.
Mind you, a skewer that runs clear in the juice is alright too, isn't it? If you say you didn't have one of these.
If you're experienced enough, yeah. Or else put a skewer in and touch it off your bottom lip. And if it burns your bottom lip, it's cooked through.
If it goes right in through your lip and not the other side.
Yeah, but that's a very old school way of doing it. But just if you're using these at home, just make sure that you stick it into the thickest part of the turkey. I've seen people stick it into the turkey out the other side and it touches a tray. And it picks up the temperature off the tray at like 200 degrees. And they're like, oh Jesus, the turkey's cooked, it's only in 10 minutes. So it just, the top of the needle needs to go into the center of the thickest part.
Because it's a fine art, you want it cooked, but you want it moist.
Yeah.
Because it's terrible dry.
Oh, turkey's worst meat in the world dry.
Dry, it's
Yeah,
dreadful.
yeah. So, and then if you're ever holding food in your oven at home, I've kept that warm. 80 degrees will keep everything nice and warm without things drying out. So everything was ready, put it all back in a tray, 80 degrees, and just kept it in the oven. And it'll just keep, like, the potatoes are still nice and warm, everything's perfectly cooked.
Yeah, yeah. All right. If you have an oven with a warming oven, you know.
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they'll keep it perfect as well. So,
Yeah.
So what I have there is ham, turkey, and your spuds, my sauce. With the ham as well, when I reheated it, I just rubbed it in some maple syrup and some whole grain mustard. So it's fully cooked, and I just put some maple syrup, honey, and mustard in a bowl and just tossed the ham in that with a little touch of Chinese 5-spice, just to give it an extra bit of flavour. You don't have to do it, but if you want, it just gives it a nice
I'm sure
kick.
it does, yeah. Well, we have heard of maple ham, haven't we?
Yeah, so it's just quite nice, you know. So I'll carve this fella up now and I'll show you what it looks like.
That bad boy.
And we'll plate it up. So again, anytime you cook a large joint of meat, you always let it rest. The longer you let it
It's a
rest.
muscle, yeah, so it's just got to...
Yeah, it's like if you burn your hand, your skin gets quite tight and it takes a couple of days for it to loosen out. The same thing happens with meat. The minute it comes in contact with heat, it just tightens up. So just let it relax.
Same for a steak and everything, they say, isn't it?
Yeah.
Let a steak stand for 5 minutes in a reasonably warm
Yeah.
place.
Like if you cut a steak,
Don't cut it.
you'll see it sometimes people cut a steak straight away and a load of juice runs out onto the plate. That's because it hasn't rested.
Yeah.
But yeah, the longer you let it rest, the better. And if you feel you've let it rest too long, it's gone cold, just 80 degrees, heat it back up.
Yeah.
Job done.
Yeah. And of course, it can depend on the turkey you're buying too, can't it? Whether it's farmed, whether it's even organic, whether it's factory.
Yeah,
or can you tell?
Well, what will happen is I generally find with organic and free-range turkeys, they've got more flavour in them. The meat is a lot denser. They actually take longer to cook. Whereas sometimes if you've got a cheap turkey that's kind of been pumped full of water, it cooks a lot quicker, but doesn't have the same flavour. So again, by using the temperature probe, you know exactly when it's cooked, whatever kind of turkey you're using. So what I'm going to do is just carve this now.
Oh, I see what you mean here. We've got a lovely contrast going on there. Yeah.
So you've got a nice contrast, you've got a nice bit of stuffing there.
That's so clever.
So you can just literally carve a nice big steak of it like that. The good thing as well
That's great.
of carving like that, if you carve nice chunky bits, it holds its heat a lot longer. So if you're feeding 6 or 7 people, like if I cut these really, really thin, they cool down very, very fast. So by the time it gets to the people, so if you cut a nice big steak,
And you just need one slice then, as opposed to 2 or 3.
one big slice like that,
It's like a fillet.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then a nice slice of ham. Sit that on there as well. And then as well with the loin of bacon, everyone's getting a bit of the crispy fat, everyone's getting a bit of the glaze on every single slice. And then some gravy over the top. And again, not too much. And then you could have a different type, like your Brussels sprouts there, which we didn't get around to doing today. But very, very simple. 2 trays, and there's enough food there for 8 people. And all you've used is 2 trays and 2 pots.
But the Brussels sprouts are pan-fried and then finished in the oven with icing sugar.
No, Brussels sprouts, what you do is you parboil them,
Parboil them.
3 or 4 minutes,
Yeah.
cut them in half, let them cool down, and
You
then just...
wouldn't pan-fry them, as some people do with chestnuts or something, you know?
No, what I do is I parboil them, cut them in half, let them cool down, and then just a little bit of icing sugar, and then pan fry them in some butter, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you do pan-fry them and then into the oven.
Yeah, just to warm them through.
Yeah, yeah.
So that's it. So you've got nice colours, you've purple, you've got the black, white, red, you've got your nice potatoes. And then I've just put some fresh chopped spring onions over the top.
Wow.
So that's it.
That is a Christmas Day masterpiece.